Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Newsviews. I'm Terrell Brown. Each year, thousands of children from around the world come to the U.S. alone, winding up in this country's immigration system. So, once they're here, who looks out for those children? Sometimes it's the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights. That program is based at the University of Chicago Law School. It advocates for children in some of the most difficult cases. Maria Walgen, Executive Director of the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights, is here to talk more about what they do. Maria, good morning to you. It's good to see you. So this program has been around in Chicago, got started here 15 years ago.
That's right.
What does this organization do?
So our job is to advocate for the best interests of unaccompanied and separated immigrant kids. So these are the kids who you said come to the United States from all over the world. And our job is to advocate for their best interests, which means their safety and well-being. And in our offices, we are attorneys and social workers, but we are not the children's direct representation. Our job is a little bit different. So I can give you an example if you'd like. So let's say a child comes here and he's fleeing violence in Honduras, and he gets here and he says, all of my family was killed. I know if I go back, I'll be killed too. So he's eligible for protection here in the United States.
Right.
But 7 months later, he's still in custody, and he wants to get out of custody. He can't take it anymore. We call it detention fatigue. And he tells his lawyer, I want to leave. And his lawyer counsels him, but he still says, I want to leave. So the lawyer's job is to tell the judge, my client is asking for, it's called voluntary departure, to return home. And then the judge turns to us and says, you know, Ms. Walgen, do you have a recommendation? And we would recommend in a case like that it's not in his best interest to return to home country because he's going to be in danger. And we can't just say it's dangerous in Honduras. We have to give very fact-based information to the judge in a case like that.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a bit. At first glance, I look at an organization like this and I think this should be something that you would see normally along the southern border of the United States. Why is this organization based here in Chicago?
So we started 15 years ago, and the government gave a little bit of seed funding it was Heartland Alliance, and we started, I started as an independent contractor through Heartland, and in Chicago, because the kids get caught at the border, they get apprehended at the border, either in Texas or Arizona or in California at the San Diego border, and then the government has shelter facilities around the country. Most of them are around the perimeter of the United States, as you can expect.
Yeah.
But many, many years ago, probably 25 years ago, the government entered into a contract here in Chicago with Heartland Alliance to provide shelters for kids. So back then it was one shelter with 70 children, but now there are 11 facilities in Chicago for approximately 500 kids.
It's a lot more accompanied minors coming through.
Yes.
By the time these kids get to you, what are some of the experiences that they have had? What have they gone through?
Sure. So, you know, typically you don't pick up and leave your country unless you are unsafe or you need to get to safety. So these kids have, first of all, been through a lot of trauma in their home countries. And right now, most of the kids are coming from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. And, you know, the violence is uncontrolled in those countries. United Nations has said Honduras is the #1 murder capital in the world. So these kids are at risk in their home countries. The gangs and the cartels are trying to recruit them, or they're harming them or harming their families. And so they're fleeing their home countries to get to the United States. So first of all, they've experienced trauma in their home country, and then the journeys are often very difficult. They're on their own, or they're traveling with a group of people. They're not with their parents, and it takes a long time. Sometimes it can take, from some countries, 6 weeks, but we've seen kids who it's taken 3 months and longer to get here. And so those journeys are very difficult. And then they arrive, and the first thing that happens is that they come into immigration custody at the border.
What's the scenario that you generally run into? Because in the news lately, we've been talking a lot about the children that have been separated from their parents at the border. Is that the case that you most often see, or are these kids often coming alone?
So most of the kids who we see are coming on their own, and I think it's 83% are the kids who come completely on their own. And then there are the families that have been in the news recently, and that's been, it's a distinct situation where families are arriving, and under the zero tolerance policy that was announced in May, the children are being taken away from their parents children placed in custodial facilities all around the country, including Chicago, and the adults typically staying on the border. But just to be clear, I mean, this is a relatively new, it's relatively new in terms of being a policy across the board. But at the Young Center, we've seen this for about a year in ad hoc cases, but we've seen a significant uptick in the number of cases in which kids were taken away from their parents. And I just want to add, last week, the government, they announced that they were going to end this policy. And then, as you probably know, this week, the court in California ruled in an ACLU lawsuit that they were ordered to stop separating families in order to reunify families immediately.
Yeah.
But we have yet to see how that's going to play out.
It's a process.
And our concern is that the kids, they've been separated, they're going to be reunified and then placed in family detention. That's another concern. I mean, we would argue certainly it's not in a child's best interest to be separated from their parent, and it's also not in a child's best interest to be placed in detention, family detention.
Right. So many layers to this, Maria. Hang on for just a second. We're going to take a quick break. More of our discussion right after this.
Hey, if you like that video, be sure to subscribe to our ABC7 Chicago YouTube channel.